The Marine Knights there, taken down behind the net. And that will do it. The heartbreak is over for Beijing. Canada gold.
Women's hockey didn't always look like this. In fact, it has taken more than 130 years for women's hockey to become something that people flock to in the rinks and on their televisions on a Saturday night. But what a ride it has been, full of events of historical relevance for our nation. The puck dropped for women's hockey on February 11th, 1891. The first known instance of a woman playing the game was noted by a reporter for the Ottawa Citizen, who saw a women's hockey game and wrote that some of the women are very swift skaters and they can dodge the puck equal to some of the best men players. The first women's recognized hockey game was played in Ottawa and included Lady Isabel Stanley, who played for the government house team. Around that time, women's hockey also became popular at universities, with teams formed at Queen's and McGill, among others. In 1927, Elizabeth Graham, a goalie from Queen's, put on a fencing mask to protect her face, making her the first hockey player to ever wear a mask in the game. A few years later, in the 1930s and 40s, women's hockey saw a steady decline, largely due to the Great Depression and the Second World War. Even by the 1950s, women's hockey was not a widespread activity. Ab Hoffman, aka Abigail, was a girl disguised as a boy so she could play local hockey. It was not until a tournament that required her to produce a birth certificate that her cover was blown. She led a challenge on boys-only teams all the way to the Supreme Court, where it was rejected. By the 1960s, however, although girls were still being rejected by boys' teams, they started to come together to form women's leagues. The 1970s saw many women putting together club teams throughout Canada. People started to realize that women's hockey was not a passing fad. The Ontario Women's Hockey Association, also known as the OWHA, was formed in 1975 and continues to produce some of the world's best female hockey players. In 1987, the first Women's World Championship took place in North York, Ontario, and 3 years later, the first fully sanctioned IIHF Women's World Championship took place in Ottawa. Canada beat out the United States 5-2 in the final, earning the gold medal. By this time, there were 9,000 girls and women registered to play in Canada. The 2000s has witnessed tremendous growth in participation, and that 9,000 has grown to 60,000 and more. Women and girls play in sanctioned leagues in almost every community in the nation, and our national teams shine on a world stage. In fact, the Canadian Women Olympic team has won 5 of the last 6 Winter Games. Hockey is part of our Canadian heritage, and women's hockey is the modern-day extension of that. In 2021, 93% of respondents to a general poll agreed that hockey is an integral part of Canadian identity. There are outdoor and indoor rinks in every community across the country, and a hockey scene appears on our $5 bill. As of 2021, over 600,000 children, women, and men are registered each year in organized hockey in Canada. At the professional level, Canadians still make up over 50% of the players in the NHL, more than 2.5 times the number of American players. What makes that number extraordinary is that Canada has only 1/10 the population of the USA. The NHL video game series took a big step forward in 2022 when they added the IIHF women's national teams to the game in time for the Winter Olympics. There is an important link to Bishop's University, where after many years as a club team, women's hockey is starting its second year as a varsity sports. Bishop's having a women's hockey team is yet another example of how women's hockey is growing. Now, in 2022, U Sport has 37 female teams across the country. Considering in 1926 there were only 3 university teams, it shows exponential growth in women's hockey in Canada. Hockey itself is deeply rooted in Canada. In Hero of the Play, poet Richard Harrison discusses the origins of hockey. It may have started in Nova Scotia or Quebec, but what's important isn't where the origin of hockey is found in Canada, but how Canada finds at least part of its origin in hockey.